Good morning. I'd like to call the meeting to order, acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Indian Cree, and Dakota peoples, and the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from the Shoal Lake 40 First Nation and Treaty 3 territory. My name is Neil Harden. I am chairing today's panel. With me via Zoom is Kent Thielen, and in the room is Doug Marks. The assessor today is Jason Brown, and the administrative assistant is Jaswinder Kumar. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment rule in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application. We will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by council and is independent of it in the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the applications of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following a swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions the applicant may have, then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You'll receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and we're part of the public record. We'll be hearing items 1 to 4 on our docket today. Mr. Kumar, please affirm the assessor's and applicant's testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Jason Brown.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld, please state your full name.
Rocky Neufeld.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Okay, so the first property on today's agenda is 2049 Dougal Road, and I'll apologize in advance that I will require a brief break, but at an unknown time. So if I interrupt the presentation, please accept my apologies now. So, Mr. Brown, on 2049 Dougal Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is file number 22-2648, roll number 0900711500. Once again, the subject's located at 2049 Dougal Road. The department has a recommendation to reduce this assessment from $1,450,000 down to $1,290,000, and that's based on a rent reduction.
Rent reduction to what amount?
We just went to the actuals, so I didn't actually calculate it. It was done this morning before the hearing, but we just used the NOI on the statement.
Okay. And Mr. Neufeld, how do you feel about that recommendation?
Yes, we're accepting that recommendation.
All right. Any questions from the panel on this then? Kent, any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Doug, any questions?
No questions for me, thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. So then we will move onwards to 410 Oak Point. Highway, which I understand there's a non-co-op requested. So Mr. Brown, can you read in the property and then begin on the non-co-op.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is file number 22-3794, roll number 14096620900, located at 410 Oak Point Highway. I'll just go through my non-cooperation argument. We're asking that the burden of proof be placed on the applicant under section 53(3)B, and that the reduction in assessment be delayed by 1 year under section 54(3.2). If we turn to page 2 of my evidence, this is where we show our request for information. So you can see there was a sale on this property on June 27th, 2019. We did receive a sales mailer back on December 6th, 2019. That was sent out on October 18th. However, the 2 subsequent requests for information in 2019 and 2020 were not received. We can go to page 12, please. So here's the sales mailer that we received in 2019 on December 6th. You can see that the property sold on June 27th, 2019 at the top right, and this was due November 8th, 2019. We did receive it December 6th. You'll note on page 13, this was signed for by Chad Brick. On the following page, we have the application for the Board of Revision for this hearing today. You'll see once again, this was signed by Chad Brick at the bottom left-hand side. Moving on to page 16, we have the envelope for the registered letter that was mailed out to the property. We can see at the top right-hand corner of the envelope, there's a tracking number, LP657139184CA. And that's going to correspond with, on the next page, this is the letter that went out to the owner in that envelope. We can see at the top left, that same tracking number, LP657139184CA. And then once again on page 17 at the top left, we'll see that same tracking number. This is the Canada Post tracking breakdown. So this was delivered on June 10th. We can see it about halfway up from the bottom. Notice card was left indicating where and when to pick up the item. There was nobody there to receive the item. On June 15th, they received another notice that there would be returned to sender if not collected in 10 days. And then on June 28th, the item was returned to the sender, which is why on the envelope, you can see that the address is covered up with our office's postal code. Page 18, once again, that same tracking number at the top left-hand corner. And these are the blank income expense questionnaires that were returned in that envelope. And based on that, we're asking that the penalties for non-cooperation be granted. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Newfield, any questions on the non-co-op?
Yes, I do. So I'm looking firstly at, there's 2 letters here, page 18 and 19. Oh, I see. One is English, one is French.
Correct.
And they were addressed were they addressed to 410 Oak Point Highway?
Correct.
Okay, and the envelope, there's no address shown here. Do you
That's
know where
correct.
it was sent?
It was sent to 410 Oak Point Highway. Unfortunately, when it got returned to the sender, which was us, they put that sticker on top of the address so you can't see it.
The letter for on page 15 then, is this a copy? I noticed it's the same date, or I'm just trying to figure this out.
Somehow 15 and 18 are the same, exactly.
Yeah,
the same. It just got put in there twice by accident.
Okay, and where is the cover letter for the sales mailer?
The cover letter for the sales mailer?
Yeah.
This is what we received back from the owner.
Yeah, but you don't know where it was sent then?
This was sent to 410 Oak Point Highway.
That's okay, well, that's not in your package, and I understand you're using it to support that one letter went through and the other didn't, but you didn't provide that though, did you?
No,
Okay.
just verbal.
Now, do you know where Mr. Brick's corporate office is?
I do not.
Okay. So is this just an assumption that 410 Oak Point was the correct address for service? Because I know his office to be on Marion.
That was the mailing address we received. We never received a request to change it. So that is where it got sent.
Okay, but now I haven't pulled the title yet, and I don't have my person here to pull titles. Do you know what the address is on titles for service?
I don't.
Okay, now, what is your proof that delivery was made then?
The only proof we have was that Canada Post claims that they delivered the item to the address and that it wasn't received.
Didn't they claim they dropped it at the Tyndall Park Post Office?
Yes, so they brought it to the address. No one was there. They brought it to they left a card indicating where they could pick it up, which was the Tyndall Park Post Office. You're correct.
Right, so there's no proof that service was ever made, is there?
Just, we have to take Canada Post's word that they left a note saying this is where you can pick up your letter.
Sure, but that's not proof of delivery, is it? That's proof of an attempted delivery, isn't it?
I mean, it was delivered to the address, the card, just no one was there to receive it.
What at the bottom of it says signature required on return. Do you have any signatures at all?
We don't. Nobody picked up the letter.
Okay. And last question, just let me verify the timings on this. You sent a letter out sometime in you got it returned December 6th, 2019 on the sales. And this mailer went out June 9th, 2021. So a difference of quite some time. In between that time, I believe March of 2020 were when the first business closures were ordered by the province. Is that been considered here at all?
So the letter was sent out June 9th and it was delivered June 10th. March is much before that.
Attempted to, I want to correct you there, that
you're correct. It was attempted delivery.
What Canada Post did is they left a card at the address. Do you know where the card went? Was it stuck in the door?
That I don't know.
Okay. Okay, those are my questions. Thanks.
Okay, Doug, any questions on the non-co-op?
No questions for me. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Kent, any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
All right, so Mr. Neufeld, you can on the non-co-op then.
Thank you. I have emailed a whole bunch of documents to you. I'm not going to force you to read them. I just want to make sure they're on the record, and I'll tell you what's in them. I'm being coached remotely here, so I am getting a bit of assistance here to outline the case. But essentially what I sent you, I don't know if you've received it. There are 8 documents.
It's in the folder, Mr. Chair.
Okay, let me just bring that up.
They're labeled as non-compliance.
Yep, okay, I see them.
So the first one I want to draw your attention to is marked closures. And these are just the dates that Manitoba's closures were in effect. And essentially it was from the first ones began in March of 2020, and the last one was lifted to begin July 1st, 2021, well after the delivery attempt was made. This business, 410 Oak Point, was closed. Unfortunately, had it been delivered to the right address, which is on Marion, it would have been received because that business was open. So they had no knowledge of receipt of this. They were closed. the second set of documents is some orders that sorry, my coach is giving me some advice here. I'm gonna make this quick. They're marked penalty cases, and there are 3 of these, and all of these are exactly the same issue, where an attempt was made for delivery and the business was closed. And in each of these cases, I think there's about 14 or 15 of them. The board did not impose the penalty, and one of the reasons given was that businesses were closed and couldn't receive, and the other reasons were that delivery had not been made, which is the bottom line. Lastly, there are 4 decisions here, and they are involving 99 Murray Park, Russell Inn, Mo Investments, and 1483 Pembina Highway. All of these were the same issue. Delivery was not made, and therefore the penalty could not be imposed, and that's the bottom line. I will read what I've. If no receipt, there can be no penalty. The Act 16.2 states that where a person, including a Crown agency or corporation, receives a written request from an assessor, the person shall, within 21 days of receiving the request. No receipt, they did not get it, so the penalty cannot be applied in this case, and consistent with the vast. I mean, I think every case we've had this year has resulted in that. I'm not suggesting that you're bound to follow what other people have done, but I think that there's a lot of reasonableness behind it. We've heard assessors testify that they know Canada Post is not delivering this stuff because Canada Post has their own non-contact policy. So the service was just missed in a lot of cases. That is our position on this.
Okay, questions, Mr. Brown?
Just a couple. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rocky, you'll acknowledge that the owner obviously did receive the sales mailer.
Yeah, it was. They were open at the time on Oak Point.
Okay. So the reason for the 2020 INE not being returned was due to COVID and the pandemic. Was there a reason for the 2019 not being returned as well?
Well, they received whatever they were given. Now, remember, this is not their main site for work. I am be careful here because I know you and I have discussed the sale a bit off the record. And as the current owner was taking possession of the site, they were there for some of the events, and then there was the turnover period and transition period, and they got their mail. But subsequent to that, they've been attempting to put a tenant in there, and there's no one on site. And during COVID, there was absolutely no one on site, whether it be a tenant or the owner. The owner's address for service. And again, I'm sorry I did not provide this, but I know for a fact that their address for service is Eastside Collision Repair on Marion. Just trying to remember the address on Marion. I want to say 975 Marion.
That would be close. I used
Yeah,
to work at
that's their address for service.
Okay, those I think are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, Kent, any questions of Mr. Neufeld?
Just to reconfirm, there is no one that's been at this address since 2019.
Yeah, they've been, no one has been there on a consistent basis. I think it's been attempting to be rented since then. So nothing, no one.
Thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Doug, any
No
questions?
questions for me, thank you.
Okay, the question I have, was the city ever informed that the mailing address would be different than the business address?
Yeah, I had forgotten to pull the title. I don't know if they were. I think that, well, I know that the title service is not this one, so I imagine that the city never updated their records from the title. To the Marion address. I'm just looking around to see if there's anyone in the office who can actually pull that to confirm it, but I'm very sure I've known Mr. Brick for several years, and I know his operations fairly well. He's actually got another third operation at 2535 Brookside in the Arma roster. And the reason I bring that up is because he doesn't like his mail to go there because it's a rural route and you don't get your mail there, so he gets it all at Marion.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask one more question based on the replies?
Sure.
Thank you. Rocky, this is currently tenanted?
I'm not sure if he's got somebody in there finally. I never asked the question.
Do you mind if I just clarify that?
Yeah, I mean, I can, I don't know how we clarify this.
Well, I'm looking at Google Street View, and a picture taken May 21, and there's a company called Zone Refinish in there.
Okay, I don't know. I don't know if that was who that is.
Okay. Whether it's tenanted or owner occupied, we're not
right,
sure.
That's not the owner.
Okay.
His intent all along was to rent this out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I got no more questions then. So I guess the board will have to deliberate on this for a few minutes.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Yeah.
All right, thank you. We'll come back to order here. We've deliberated on the non-co-op here, and in this instance, we're going to decline it. We do accept the verbal testimony from Mr. Neufeld that the mailing address on the title was different than the business address, and that the business was closed due to COVID. So under these circumstances, we feel that the penalty should be declined. Although we did have some concern that a party shouldn't be able to avoid the requirement for information simply by not signing for receipt of a registered letter. But in all the other circumstances, we feel that the penalty should be, the non-co-op should be declined in this instance. So, Mr. Brown, then on the value.
Thank you. So we have a 2023 assessed value based on a reference date of April 1st, 2021 of $1,282,000. I'll note that that's a 15% increase over last cycle, which was $1,113,000. This is a one-story building built in 1978 with 16-foot wall height, built with metal frame, and has a leasable area of 9,216 square feet. On page 2, the subject did sell recently, which we talked about during the previous discussion. So it sold on June 27th, 2019 for $1,421,000. However, when we did some research on that sale, we did see that it was between related parties. I have some rental comparables on page 3, all located relatively in the area. We can see the areas range from, the leased areas range from 7,260 square feet all the way up to 13,680 square feet. The wall heights range from 16 to 25. The effective years built range from 83 to 2000. And the rents range from $8 to $11. Capitalization rates located on page 4. These are the capitalization rates we're using for this cycle. Industrial highlighted, second grouping down from the top. We can see the city's using a range from the 20th to 80th percentile from 5.55 up to 7.45. Outside sources shown on the right ranging from 6 up to 7.25. Income workup on page 5. I'll note that almost every single item is in contention today. Starting with the area, city's using 9,216 square feet. We're using an average rent over the 2 different premises of $8.31. I'll just note the 1,200 square feet is the mezzanine. We've got 4% vacancy, 3% expenses, $3.85 per square foot for shortfall. This gives us our net operating income of $69,858, and we've capitalized that at 5.45. I'll just note that the last mailer we received in 2018, which was from the previous owner, had an NOI of 98,400, which is significantly higher than the model value of just under 70,000. I have some maps on page 7. So this is located on Oak Point Highway, very close to the airport and Centerport. Very good location if you were in the trucking or warehousing business. Aerial photographs on page 8 and some street view pictures on page 9. I have the plans on page 10 and 11. So just to note on these plans, the building is 80 by 110 feet. Just using simple math, that would be 8,800 square feet, plus the mezzanine, which is located on the bottom left-hand quadrant. You'll note that there's offices and washrooms on this mezzanine. This is not a storage mezzanine. This is actually usable space. Site plan on page 11. And then the following pages are just the documentation from the non-cooperation argument. So based on that information, I recommend that the assessment be confirmed at $1,282,000. Thank you.
All right, questions, Mr. Newfeld?
Yes, and starting with the mezzanine, what side of the building is this on? I'm just looking at your pictures on page 9.
So if you're looking on page 9, it would be on the left-hand side, I believe.
The left. The bottom picture.
Yeah, so if you go to page 10, the bottom of that drawing would be the front of the building.
Okay.
Page 9.
So at the top picture, where it looks like there's a little kid in the doorway, you're saying the mezzanine would be above that area?
Correct.
And
I mean, if it has 16-foot wall heights, you can deduce that they would be roughly 8 feet each.
okay, well, I'll get to that in a second. So there's no windows in this mezzanine? Then was what I was trying to figure out.
Doesn't appear to be, no.
No. And when you say 16-foot height, the building has a pitch to it. Where's that? And I know this is an exterior measurement. So is that the top of the pitch? Or the bottom?
I mean, judging by those doors, roughly halfway up the building on page 9, I'd say it's from the side.
Okay, well, the door is what, 78 inches, correct?
Yeah.
So that doorway is
I mean, you could say it's roughly between 14 and 16 feet.
yeah, okay, that's kind of what I was figuring. Between 14 and 16 would be my guess on that 14 pitch to 16. And how thick does the floor have to be?
I would assume it's a slab on grade.
No, the separating.
Oh, the mezz. I would assume it's some type of metal construction. I haven't been in the building.
Yeah, I mean, you're typically going to see at least in and around a foot. That's fair. Sometimes less, sometimes more.
That's probably fair.
Yeah. And what about the roof? How much? What's the construction of the roof?
That I'm not sure of.
But there's, you're not getting clear span of 14 feet inside at the edge, are you? You're gonna have some.
No, I get what you're getting at, and I agree with you that the ceiling heights on that mezz and below it are probably quite low.
Yeah, okay. That's so we're not dealing with 8-foot ceiling heights on the end or even in the middle, but somewhat less than that, averaged out. Don't know for sure.
Most
Oh, okay.
most likely.
I just want to make sure we know what we're talking about here, because I mean, you look at the pictures and you think of mezz, and I'm quite puzzled by
No,
that.
that's a good point. That's a good point.
Now, page 5 was done by the model.
Correct.
So why would the mezzanine space have a higher rental rate than the main floor area?
It's due to square footage. It's just a byproduct of the model. The lower the square footage, the higher the rent. I mean, knowing that the NOI in 2018 from the old owner, and this is verbal, I don't have it in my evidence, was 98,000. Either the rent must have been higher or the expenses must have been non-existent.
But I know I provided you some information earlier that the old owner was in financial duress, so maybe they couldn't pay the rent either.
That's possible, yes.
Oh, okay. And on the last property, I know we came to agreement on it, but I noted that the age on that one was 1976. To me, they look similar construction. Cap rate was 7.95. Here, the model has 5.45. I'm just wondering, why would there be such a large variance? This is quite a large variance.
Mostly due to size. Obviously, the location's the same, but this is less than half the size. So I'm going to say it's mostly based on that.
Have you been in any of the comparables that you've selected?
No, and I understand that the comparables probably aren't the greatest too.
No, for example, 975 Thomas is an
Yeah,
office.
some of these are flex warehouses for
Yeah,
sure.
well, it's my client's building, it's an office. 18 Terracon is Terracon's place. Okay, some of these could be office, and of course, the ceiling heights, 25 foot on Haggard is quite a bit higher than the subject. Okay.
Well, yeah, and the effective year built are not very comparable.
Okay, thank you. Those are my only questions.
Okay, Doug, any questions?
Yes, I do. On see the page 10, there's an outline of the facility itself. Now there's an office space on the main floor, and then there's a mezzanine as well. Now, is it office space on the main floor and the second floor? There's a second floor more storage area.
It's not super clear. It does show the stairs going up. So I would assume those offices and washrooms are on that floor, because usually when you show the stairs going up, you're showing that floor. But it's possible that those offices and washrooms are on the main floor and the mezzanine's above it too.
Okay, and I guess that's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Kent, any questions?
When was the last time this building was inspected?
That is a good question. I'll just look at our notes. "2015 looks like the last time somebody visited this property."
And you noted the property had a 15% increase with the previous assessment.
Correct.
Okay. Is there a reason?
So the average increase for industrial properties for this cycle was 20%. And that's supported by outside sources as well. Obviously, during the pandemic, warehousing became an important asset. People wanted to store goods, especially with the supply chain disruptions. People were wanting to sit on more goods. So we found warehouses actually performed very well during the pandemic. So the average increase was about 20%. And so this one was technically less than the average. I'll note that 2020 was appealed, but it was withdrawn at that value of 1,113,000. It was withdrawn by a different agent, meaning that that agent was okay with the value at 1,113,000.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, if we just go back to the diagram on page 10. Okay, where the offices are, those offices and washrooms appear to be main floor to me, because on the right, to the right, you have something labeled mezzanine, which basically shows a blank space.
Yep, that's a good observation.
Okay. Now, in terms of the cap rate, I mean, the cap rate you've applied is below the 20th percentile, which seems to me to be saying that this is one of the better industrial properties in Winnipeg, which you know, not to denigrate the property, but it just seems to be your typical small warehousing operation. Why should the cap rate be so low?
It's a good question.
Okay. All right.
Like I explained earlier, the size, so about under 10,000 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
Is everybody still here? I'm getting an unstable connection message.
Yeah, you were kind of breaking up a little bit there.
Okay. I'll just give it a second. Okay, we're okay now?
Yes.
Okay. So yes, it is below the 20th percentile. What we're seeing is these size of warehouse under 10,000 square feet is what we're seeing is that they're more accessible to, you know, the common person instead of like a giant REIT or an investment company. So what we're seeing is the sale prices are actually, there's more competition for these properties. More people, you know, trying to buy them.
Okay, you've broken up again
right now, and it's very difficult. Okay, I apologize. Are we okay right now? I'll just make it really quick this time. Basically, the size of this building opens up a bigger pool of investors, and we're seeing a lot of competition for this size of building, and then I think that's why the cap rate is so low.
All right, but a building this size, I mean, you're for occupiers, for leasees, you're looking at a particular size business, and let's face it, the big warehousing trucking companies wouldn't be interested in this, and so you're basically targeting a certain segment of the industrial users for this property. So doesn't that narrow your base of possible?
In that regard, yes. Obviously, this area is in high demand right now with Centerport and the airport vicinity. It's just based on what we're seeing in the market, even though on the surface it doesn't appear to, you know, be a superior building or anything like that. But it's just what we're seeing is that these buildings tend to go for higher.
All right, thank you very much. So Mr. Neufeld, you can begin your presentation.
Thank you. Just a way of beginning the presentation, a little bit about the market. I was listening to the assessor's comments, and he's partially correct. There was a lot of activity in the industrial world, not for this type of property. What we saw, because Colliers was doing the deals, was big distribution warehouses. As retail was dying during COVID, direct delivery became a big thing. And look at Amazon built 100 or went into 130,000 feet. That's what was happening. Not buildings like this. This is a more of a service-oriented site than a warehousing, so this would be a working site. Now, while you were on break, I did manage to find some information. I was reading leases that the owner had with his other sites, and two things I want to tell you about. Firstly, on the lease, it quite clearly says that the address for service is the Marion address, 874 Marion. The second thing is he's got two sites in the general area, one on Brookside, one in Moray, for his operation, and he was interested in this building, and so they are at higher rents than we had indicated, and I think it'd be fair that we should change our rate because this would be a truck repair site, and this is what their business is dealing with truck repair. This isn't their business in the site, but this is the sort of site that they would gravitate towards. So what I did was change the rent, and normally a site like this would probably be $5-6, but it's got a really good yard size to it, and it has good access. So I'm not going to disagree with the assessor's rate on the main floor at $820. I think that's probably what it would get in the market. There's nothing, mezzanine has absolutely no value. As a matter of fact, a mezzanine is a detraction from working space. You're generating money on your industrial capability, not on your office sizes. So if you put a mezzanine in, you take away working space that could be doing something good. Working office space in a place like this, a couple 100 feet, because you need an office. But other than that, you're taking away a truck bay. No, you don't do that. Your money's being made on the height. And this building at 14, I think we're somewhat in agreement at 14-16 pitch. It means it's going to have 12 feet clear. You're not putting in a mezzanine that's legal. If you had one, it would be a storage mezzanine, not for people. And the last point on mezzanine is in the marketplace, unless you can show that your site is separately demisable and has the utility, can meet code, then a realtor is not allowed to call it space. They're not allowed to say we have 9,200 square feet or whatever the case may be. They can only work on the plan area, period. If it's a violation of standards to list a property, or for me as an appraiser, it'd be a violation of standards to call that leasable space. We don't do it. Not in industrial. So, there's no separate entrance, nothing of the sort. And incidentally, the pictures that I just noticed that after the chair asked a question showed a mezzanine space. I think I read 20 by 23 feet on the dimensions. So we really shouldn't be relying on that at all. So I did change the rent to $820, and that indicated a potential income of $65,731. We put in the same vacancy, which is we use a blend of the overall industrial rate with the Inkster rate, which is a bit better. So that comes up to 5.5%. And that all comes from the Johnson report. Always have that handy here. Great report because it actually lists every single building in the city of Winnipeg, pages and pages, so you can actually go through and check a building out. And that's transparency. As far as non-recoverables and structural reserves, I've said this 100 times, I'll say it 100 more times, they exist. You have to have an allowance. Now, this building was empty for quite some time. So do you take those expenses incurred while empty and charge them fully against the subject property? No, you stabilize them over time. And that's why we have a 5% non-recoverable. That's the nature of the business. The owner lost money for months, and then now he's going to make some money. And in the future, he'll have turnover and he'll lose money. You don't ignore that. So the non-recoverables always belong. The cap rate we use was 7.5%, and the building is a full frame style construction, which means it's just a cheap building. It doesn't have a long lifespan to it. So it's an asset that you're going to want to get your capital out of quicker rather than on the long term. You know, a cap rate is basically a return on the initial investment over a period of time. And a building that lasts a long time will have a longer earning cycle life. So no one is going to look at this building and say that is a good durable stream. And that's the main issue on this is it's a shed quality. And good location in regard to size. No, it's small. A good building size in Winnipeg for an industrial use is about 30,000. That's our sweet spot. Below that size, it becomes less viable for multiple users. In this case, ceiling height suffers. Now, a good thing about it is it's got a bit more maneuvering area on the yard, which is why I thought that the high rent would be an appropriate way of addressing it, as opposed to some sites we've seen lately that had no maneuvering area. This one does, and it's got pretty decent access too. That's all reflected in the rental rate. On the cap side, again, we just see a poor quality condition, and there was something I know I can present this verbally, but I was just rereading the information that was sent to me when I had asked the owner for some information on this sale. Was that they're having a problem with the asphalt flooring that couldn't carry the load. The back part of the building, now just to take you to the assessor's sketch on his page 10. I wasn't aware of this till this morning. And he's got this part at the back that's marked storage. Now, it is heated now, but it was unheated storage in the past. And as a result, it doesn't have floor loading. They just put a covering over asphalt. So that's not good quality. Had we known that and done an inspection, we might be a bit more critical on the cap rate side, but you know, it's in at 7.5, and I'd have to inspect it before I thought of changing it. You can see on my page 1 where that addition came in, because there's a different colored roof, and you can also see that they put heat in it because there's a rooftop unit on it. But it's the floor loading which is weak, and floor loading is a key element of industrial buildings. So our new number, I'm sorry, I left you there. The NOI was 54,907, 7.5%. The value is 732,000. That's what we think is about the right number. And as to previous assessments, I have no knowledge of what went on in the past, but I suspect, rather than what the assessor said, he thought maybe thought it was fair. I think no, that there was a sale coming, and they cleaned up the legal entanglements on it prior to sale, which is a very typical thing to observe.
I will interject at this time that the board puts little weight
Yes.
on previous assessments, good or bad.
No, you know what? He tossed it out, and I tossed something back, and
Yeah.
I think both should be given the equal low weight they deserve. Thank you. That's my presentation.
Okay, questions, Mr. Brown?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Rocky, your revised value, is that still based on 8,016 square feet?
Yes, that would be the legal rentable area.
Okay, but the building, you'll admit that the building is 80 by 110?
Let me just take a look at that. That's your mark here, 80 by 110. Yeah, I mean, it just seems to differ from what we had. I'm not adverse to coming to agreement. If that's 8,800 square feet, it's 8,800 square feet. Maybe if you want to, the board's just give us just me 2 minutes, and I'll just do a quick aerial measurement. I want to get this right. Maybe that's where the measurements went off, is that some of your mezzanine area was actually floor area. Okay, I'm just there now, so I want my ruler, polygon.
Yeah, I've got 111 feet with my aerial measurement for the length.
Okay. Yeah, and you know what? I see it too. I agree with you. I've got like roughly 8,900 feet. So you're saying 80 by 110?
Yeah.
Okay, that seems appropriate. So that'd be 8,800 feet, and I would just change my value on that. We just
Changes to
$804,000.
yeah. Yeah, we couldn't do this in the old days. Now we got Google Earth and everything. Okay, so I'm up now 8,800 feet to a potential income of 72,160. My NOI is 60,443, and my value is 806,000.
And that's with a cap of 7.5.
That's correct.
How much square feet did you use?
8,800. That's the measurement of 80 by 110.
Okay, well, I come up with 804,000, but on my spreadsheet.
Oh, okay. Oh, you know, I'm using a higher shortfall, and you know, I think let me just change it. What's the city's shortfall? I don't think it's
385.
385. Okay, well, no, I came in a bit higher on that. Now with the city shortfall, which I don't think ours is right here. I don't know what happened here. My NOI is actually 61,554.
Okay, so and that gives you 821,000 then.
That's it. Now we're on the
Yeah.
same page.
So can we just go over that quick? That's 888,000 square feet at $8.20, correct?
Correct. Yes.
5.5 vacancy,
Yes, that's correct.
385 shortfall,
Correct.
5 expenses.
Yes.
So I'm getting an NOI of 62,918.
Oh, I'm also using a 2% structural reserve.
Oh, so 7%.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm not
Okay.
going to argue those points because that's not the issue here at stake. If you know, if you out of the blue surprised and said, "Oh, you agree with it,"
No, I'm not going to agree with it. I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page.
Okay. All right.
Those are my questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Mr. Seelan, any questions?
Just wanted to confirm the revised NOI.
61,554.
Your total value is 821,000.
That's correct.
Perfect. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Doug, any questions?
Yeah, so that's with a cap rate of 7.5, Rocky?
That's correct.
Okay, and then the value at that point then is 824?
I have 821. I think the 824 would be, maybe the expenses weren't the same.
So 821 is at $8.20 a square foot?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
All right, and I have no questions, so thank you very much. So we'll move on to same general area, 1595 Brookside. Let me just open the files here. Okay, Mr. Brown, you can proceed then on 1595 Brookside.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is file number 22-2646, roll number 14096652100, located at 1595 Brookside Boulevard. This is actually probably about 200 or 300 meters to the west of the last property. So it's located on Brookside, the east side of Brookside between Oak Point and Eagle Drive. We have a 2023 assessment based on April 1st, 2021 of $1,511,000. This is a one-story building built in 1991. Has 18-foot wall heights, built with metal frame construction, and has a leasable area of 12,250 square feet. I'll also note the land plan area is 9, which is pretty high for these, or for any industrial property, but it's optimal, or it's really good for these types of properties for trucking companies. We have a 2012 sale on page 2 at 1.2 million. Some rental comparables on page 3. These range in size from 4,000 square feet all the way up to 15,000 square feet. We have a wall height ranging from 10 to 26 feet. Effective year built from 1973 all the way up to 1992. And then a pretty tight grouping of rents here ranging from $6.95 up to $7.75. These are all located relatively close to the subject, mostly in the Inkster Industrial Park. Once again, capitalization rates on page 4, ranging from 5.5 at the 20th percentile up to 7.45 at the 80th percentile. Outside sources ranging from 7 3/4 up to 7 1/4. Once again, we have multiple issues in contention today. Virtually everything except for the area at 12,250 square feet. We've applied a rent of $7.12 if you average those out. This gives us our gross potential income of $87,220. We've reduced that by 4% vacancy, 3% expenses, and shortfall at $3.85 per square foot. This gives us our NOI of $79,332. Which is about 8,000 higher than Rocky's, which you're going to see when he submits his evidence. So the biggest issue between Rocky and I's workups are going to be cap rate. We're at 5 1/4, which is how we generate our value of $1,511,000. I'll note that the NOI on the questionnaire, which we'll get to at the end, is $85,650. which is about $6,000 lower than the model NOI. Page 7, this shows the aerial photographs, once again, located in a similar region to the previous property. So this is located, if you look at page 7, it's located on Oak Point Highway. That's actually the limit of the city on the left-hand side of Oak Point Highway, or sorry, Brookside, which is why the map shows white on that side. Aerial photographs on page 8. We have a street view photograph on page 9 and the plan on page 9. This used to be multi-tenanted. When this floor plan was used, there was 3 units. Now it's being occupied by a single tenant. We have the income and expense statement, or sorry, questionnaire on page 10. So once again, you'll see the NOI listed at $85,695,000. We have the tenant verification form below that. So they're paying $8,473 per month on 12,250 square feet. Semi-gross, they do pay property tax and insurance. The COVID-19 supplemental questionnaire located on page 11 and 12 indicate that there was only a minor impact from the pandemic on this property. And then we have the sales mailer from 2012 on page 13. I'll note that they indicated that the sales price was correct, that it was an open market transaction, the building was in fair condition, and the intended use was the same. So based on that evidence, we recommend that the assessment be confirmed at $1,511,000. Thank you.
Okay, questions, Mr. Neufeld?
Yes, starting with the sale, who bought the property?
The current owner, which is a number company.
Well, you look through the history of the sales, you see that they occupied the back half of it for quite some time, didn't they? Unijet?
Honestly, this is a 10-year-old sale. I didn't do too much research.
Okay, well, no, you brought it up, so you
I did.
over here. And the vendor, you weren't maybe not aware, was the tenant who's occupying the front. Were you aware of that?
No.
Okay. All right, so I just wanted to bring that up. We'll move on here. You mentioned that you did look at the income, and there's your model came up with a number fairly similar. Page 5 is all the model then?
Correct.
Okay. And in regard to the cap rate, again, 5.25%. Anybody inspect these properties ever? No, I'm not being,
Yeah, no, I understand. These buildings are not much to look at.
Yeah.
They're pretty nondescript. However, this area is incredibly active right now, and the sale prices are much higher than other locations in the city. And I feel like that's due to the location, proximity to Centerport and the airport. And it's just, if you're into, distributing goods, it's a good location.
But are these people distributing goods on site? Do you know what?
No, but I believe they service trucks that do distribute goods. And they have quite a bit of stuff in their yard, we could say.
Okay, so you're not familiar with their operation, then that's fair to say. Okay, those are my questions.
All right, Kent, any questions?
All my questions have been answered. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Doug, any questions?
Yes, just regarding the cap rate, it seems quite a bit lower than what was on the chart there. And I just thought, why was 5.25% pulled out on that one?
So you'll note that the previous property located very close was at 5.45, I believe. Yeah. This area has lower cap rates due to the activity we've seen in the area. These are, because of the location, these are highly desirable properties. I would suspect that you would see similar cap rates in the arm of Rosser where Center Adventure is located. But no, honestly, it's due to what we're seeing in the market, and we're reflecting that here.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
All right, Mr. Newfield, then you can begin your presentation.
Yes, thank you. So the history of the site is interesting because it really reflects the value it can generate. The former owner sold it, and they operated the welding shop, Tricor. They're a welding shop. Now, part of the deal when they sold it to Unijet was that they got to keep all the electricity. So there's 400 amps going in there. They took all the juice for their welding equipment. And Unijet was happy because they needed it to put their trucks indoors because they clean sewers and they have liquids and they operate in the winter. So it worked out fine. And then it got to the point where Unijet had some other locations that were better in Rosser, and they moved on their site, and the welder took over the rest of the building on a lease. The back portion is as a result horribly underserviced and not useful for the operation. So it is not a warehouse. It's a very how do I say this? I don't mean this in a negative sense because it's a working site, but it's a dirty working site. It's a welding shop. There's nothing nice about it. They do a necessary job. They're not distributing skip the dishes or Amazon goods to your door from distribution centers. It's an accident of location that they are where they are. It has nothing to do with Centerport. They're making channel iron, and the stuff in the yard is scrap metal that they're also pulling off vehicles and using in their process. So it's just junkyard. The rent that we used was the paid rent, and in my estimation, I think on one point that the assessor is somewhat correct. There's a good yard component here, so this should be a $4 or $5 site, but with the yard, $7 what they're paying is fair. Vacancy, same calculation of the Inkster and citywide rental rates. This is a building that will suffer vacancies like the one before because it's just a small shop. And costs go with the site all the time. The proper appraisal methodology is to apply a non-recoverable expense allowance. I'm not in love with the shortfall here at 561. I don't know if it's calculated correctly, and I'm not standing behind it. Oh, I see what happened here. You see the error. I changed the shortfall in the last one. It was based on the proposed assessment being the actual tax rate. So I don't think that that's fair ball. If we're asking for a reduction, we should be using a lower short rate. And so sometimes I have to correct these things. So I would use the assessor's workup in this case, and slightly modify my number just to be fair. And that would be a change to 385 and 561. But I think that makes a very interesting point in that is the impact of these assessments, is that this massive jump is quite unreasonable. It'll throw off all the shortfall rates. So I've just changed that to 385, and the NOI becomes 72,767, and the cap rate at 7.25. represents a value of $1,004,000, 1,004,000, which is slightly higher than the previous year's assessment. This is not something you could say moves with the market of the distribution warehouses. It does not. It's just a shop. The only good point about it is it's in the Centerport zone. So if they were actually producing more sophisticated goods that were for export, they would have a slight advantage on the taxation side. You know, like very expensive valves. They're not making that. They're making cheap metal. Sorry, I'm not being derogatory. I don't know another word for it. So there's no advantage to it. And then the cap rate, of course, it's the same issue as before. This is basic construction, and it hasn't aged well. 1991, if you walked into the building, you would never guess that. It shows much older, but it's got a very hard usage on it, and so it's going to have a short life. And the 7.25 is a pretty fair rate. Just to point out, and I don't want to belabor this too much, but when Colliers does cap rate reports, and they're listed on page 25, you can see our industrial between 6 and 6.75% for class A and B. And then our description of that is on page 17. Yeah, this isn't one of them. You know, this does not have a good clear height. It does not have good quality space. It is basic. It's a class D. If there were a class D industrial, that's what it would be. So it's well outside the range of what's measured by our firm, as well as any of the firms that the assessor quoted in his report on his page. They always put in these cap rate reports from other people on his page 4. Nobody tracks this stuff. This is working industrial. I take that back. I see CBRE has a 7.25% high rate, but generally it's not tracked. That's my presentation.
Okay, questions, Mr. Brown?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So yeah, this is not an investment grade property.
No.
Is what
Right.
No. But these non-investment grade buildings, they still sell, correct?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And so is that not how you would derive your cap rate, is by looking at those sales and calculating that with the NOIs?
No, never. I mean, you don't take a non-investment building and use it to calculate a cap, because there is no relationship between its rental income and its sales value. Nothing exists. Now, because we're using the income approach, we're stuck with this approach. Now, if one were to look at this on a direct comparison approach, which is probably the way it would go on the market, then you look and say, is the number I put on it, which is approximately $80 a foot, is that fair for a property like this? And you know, the sales are ranging from I mean, there's lows in the $40 a foot, and highest industrial, really good stuff will be you know, it could hit 110, 20. So I think 80 is right on the mark for this. I mean, my thinking on this site is it's a land value, and that you would be looking at you know, 2.5 acres of land, and having to do some cleanup, so you'd pay $450 an acre for 450 an acre. Seems to be where it would fall in. All the sales in Centerport, that's what they're going for.
Okay, thanks. So we are stuck with the income approach. We're not using direct comparison, correct?
That's correct.
So how do you derive a cap rate for this type of building if you're not going to look at sales of this type of building, and you can't look at investment grade property cap rates? How do you derive a cap rate for this type of building?
Well, I mean, the investment grade sites give us a starting point, and on our page 2, we use that starting point of 6%. And then we look at this and we extrapolate and say, where does this lead us? The perfect property could hit 6%. Where does ours differ from that? And then in consultation with our, we can't, this is great on video, but we've got 25 brokers sitting just behind me, and we go through this and say, what are the deficiencies? We're the market leader in Winnipeg, and not bragging, it's just that we are, and so we got a good deal of knowledge here, and go over the deficiencies, and that's how we come up at 725.
Okay, so you're extrapolating on the investment grades cap rates. Do you have any sales, anything to support these adjustments?
In the last 2 years, there's been a massive scarcity of any investment sales. And I think both the assessor and firms like mine agree that there's just nothing out there, and you're going to have to do a lot of critical thinking to do this. But this does mirror practices of 6 years ago, when there were more of these sales, about the spread between good industrial and working industrial. When there were more of these sales, spread we picked, if the best absolute rate was 6%, and we're using a 1.25% spread, that's pretty good actually, and that's comparable to past years. Past years, actually, you probably see about a 2.5 point spread, and so the narrowing of the spread is one of the market factors that has come up.
Those are my questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks,
Okay, Doug, any questions?
Yeah, would this be more like a fab shop then, Rocky?
A fab?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just trying to remember. They're making channel irons. They were running them through machines and then welding them together when I was there.
Okay. So they are building purpose-built.
Framing structures, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Just to piggyback on that, I Googled Tri-Core projects. They seem to specialize in heavy manufacturing, focusing on bridge construction. They also do a lot of shoreline erosion and shoreline stabilization and remediation.
Yeah, so that's making the channel iron, and sometimes they'll put the pieces together on site, or sections of them, or sometimes they get shipped to a site and bolted together.
Thank you.
All right, Kent, any questions?
Sure, just to confirm, the revised NOI is 72,767.
Yeah, 72,667.
Is that I just okay, sorry about that. I lost my screen. Yes, that's correct.
And your market value is now 1,004,000.
That's correct.
Mhm. Based on this building, what would you say the condition is of it?
It's I think the sales questionnaire was pretty good, calling it fair, and fair is about the worst condition you can give a building, because it's one step above abandonment. Fair. It means it's doing its job, but not pretty. No, it's not good. Yeah.
How would you compare this to the previous property?
I haven't been in the previous property. I know that the shortcomings on that one were that they attached a shed over a lot, but I have been in the first one on Dougal several times. Actually, incidentally, it's the same ownership. It's really comparable to that. The one in Dougal is and the assessor had it capped at 795. was a purpose-built vegetable distribution, but it's just real basic condition, and this one is worse shape than that, but newer.
So, when was the last time you inspected this property?
I was just looking for that. I don't know where my pictures went to, but it was for I was out with an assessor to the site. And I had something to do with not sure if it was case management or just an inspection, maybe 2017, 2018. Unijet was still in there, so that was before 2020.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, and I have no questions, so thank you very much for that. We'll move on to our last property then, 220 Salto Crescent. So, Mr. Brown,
I'm done, right?
you're done. Yes,
right.
you can leave us.
Thank you.
Now, I understand there's little evidence on this one, but Mr. Brown, can you read in for the record, the roll number and the assessed value?
Certainly. Just bear with me for a second. While I pull up that file. Okay, are we ready?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is file number 22-3366. Roll number 0708126560. We have a 2023 assessment of $2,622,000, and we're asking that be confirmed. Thank you.
All right. And we have in the applicant's evidence a request for confirmation of the assessment. Doug, do you have any questions of the assessor?
None whatsoever. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Kent, do you have any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so then we have heard all the items scheduled today, and this hearing is now adjourned. We'll just take a very brief break and then come back and do our deliberations.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, panel members. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.